Namaskar. I am Dr. Narinya Vinesh Wagmare, working as an assistant professor at Tirat Maharashtra Vidyapeeth. This is my brief information. Today's our topic is related to 5-year plans. Uh, First 5-year plan 1951 to 1956, second 5-year plan 1956 to 1961, third 5-year plan 1961 to 1966, then plan holidays 1966 to 1969, and fourth 5-year plan 1969 to 1974, fifth 5-year plan 1974 to 1978, rolling plan 1978 to 1980, sixth 5-year plan 1980 to 1985, seventh 5-year plan 1985 to 1919. Other plans are there, but our syllabus is up to the 1990s. So here only this plan is considered very briefly in this lecture. Then fire plans and industrialization. Why the fire plan is important? What is important and why it is planned for the development of the nation or the for economic development of the nation for the improvement of the people's life. That the main reasons to behind this planning one. On 15 August 1947, when India became independent politically, the country stood at the threshold of a new era. The country at this stage was underdeveloped and its people were on the brink of poverty. Its vast resources, agriculture, and minerals were exploited due to lack of proper direction. Planning offered the only way to achieve a rapid and balanced growth, keeping the national priorities in mind. Now that the state was now expected to plan an active part in economic and social development. The success of such planned development in both agrarian and industrial sector in the USSR also played a part in popularizing the concept of planned development in India. After the adoption of new constitution, the government of India set up the Planning Commission in March 1950 to assess the country's material, capital, and human resources and to formulate a plan for the most effective and balanced utilization. The first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, was also its chairperson. Its first chairperson, the Finance Minister and the Minister for Planning were its essential members, amongst other ministers in different capacities linked to economic development. Objectives of fire plans. What were the objectives? Why this was introduced? And what were the reasons behind it? Some of the objectives outlined in these plans were maximization of nation income, rapid industrialization, providing full employment to all, and most importantly, achieving self-sufficiency, because most of the time we are dependent on the other countries for every point of view. The central purpose identified with the process if development was to raise the standard of living and opening our more opportunities to people. Planning in India needed proper channeling of resources into different developmental activities in accordance with accepted national priorities. While short-term developmental objectives now vary from plan to plan, the planning process was in some ways inspired by certain long-term goals also. There are high growth rate with a view to improve the standard of living. The people's standard must be improved on, that is the one. Then due to the oppressive policies of the British, the country in the colonial period witnessed a retarded development. The standard of living of people was very low. The general objective for all the 5-year plans has to be raise the standard of living and achieve a much higher growth rate of national income. Achieving a social justice also one more objective as per the directive principles of state policy laid down in the constitution. Achievement of the justice, social, economic, and political way proclaimed as a national commitment. Then the other objectives are the 5-year plan being an inherent part of state policy, social justice figured as the most important objective in them. Its purview covered the achievement of economic and social equality and regional balance in development and avoidance of concentration of economic power. Special care for the development of special care for the backward classes of the population is one of the targets for attaining social justice. Economic self-reliance, political independence is never complete without economic independence. Self-reliance in this regard came as natural objective of the successive five-year plans. The emphasis was on achieving financial self-reliance. Its essence lay in the fact that the economy should be able to finance its continued growth at a satisfactory rate, largely from domestic resources. Foreign and external help should be kept at minimum level, not maximum level. So we have to produce ourselves goods and utilize for our own people and not to depend more on foreign countries. However, a major policy change occurred in this regard from 1991 when the government at the center liberalized the economy and went all the way to attract foreign investments in order to modernize the economy faster. The strategy for development included comprehensive planning for all-round development, a mixed economy approach to keep up the socialistic pattern of development, achieve a balanced development, and that would develop both agriculture and industry, provide maximum employment, cater to the development of backward areas, to uplift the backward classes and achieve overall social welfare. So let's see the first five-year plan. There are two objectives of this first five-year plan. It was in 1951 to 1956 to correct the disequilibrium in the economy caused by the Second World War and the partition of the country, to initiate simultaneously a process of all-round development which would ensure a rise in national income and a steady improvement in the living standard of the people. The plan accorded the highest priority to agriculture, including the irrigation and power projects. The plan also aimed at increasing the rate of interest from 5% to 7% of the national income. The growth rate achieved in his plan was 3.6%. So here the first preference given to the agriculture, irrigation and other projects. Then second five-year plan 1956 to 1961. In December 1954, the Parliament declared the objective of the second plan to achieve the socialistic pattern of society. The basic aim under this was to attain greater equality of income and wealth and not private profit. So it promoted a pattern of development that would lead to the establishment of a socialistic society in India. The benefits of plan were directed towards the betterment of the less privileged than the progressive sections. The main objective of second five-year plan were and with special emphasis on development of basic and heavy industrialization, with special emphasis on the development of basic and heavy industries. Large expense of employment opportunity, more and more opportunity provided to the people and give importance to the basic and heavy industries in India. Then the reduction of the inequalities in income and wealth and more even distribution of economic power to the. That is also one more point. Then the second plan aimed at increasing the rate of investment from 7% to the 11% of the national income by 1960-61. This plan increased the scope of industrialization by increasing the production of heavy chemicals, development of heavy engineering and machine building industries. For the first time, long-term economic policy was formulated and loans were taken from foreign countries. The growth rate achieved was 4%. Rapid industrialization and diversification of the economy were the main course of the development. The development of basic industries and allocation of resources among different sectors were also taken carefully and succeed in some extent. Then we directly go to the Third Fire Plan 1961 to 1966. The Third Fire Plan aimed at securing a marked advance towards self-sustaining growth. Its objectives were increase in the national income of over 5% annum and at the same time ensure a pattern of investment that would sustain this rate of growth during the subsequent plans period, such as self-sufficient in food grains and increase agriculture production to meet the requirements of the industry and exports. Expand the basic industry like steel, chemicals, fuel, and power, and to establish machine building ability to so that a requirement of further industrialization could be met with a period of 10 years and that too from the country's own resources. This means not to export the material from the other countries, self-reliance and produce here things and again given importance to food and agriculture things, even grain producing in India more. And that much produce the grains and foods which we can able to export those things to other countries. Then utilize fully the manpower resources of the country and ensure a sustained expensive employment opportunity more and employment opportunity provided to the people. Bring down the disparities of income and wealth and get a more equitable distribution of economic power. Then the national income in this plan was to increase by about 30% by 1965 to 66 and per capita income by about 17% during the period. The growth rate stipulated at 2.2%. The programs of the second plan were carried over in the third plan too. The development of basic industry remained a fundamental concern to growth. Then the annual plans 1967 to 1968, then 1969. The situation created by the Indo-Pak conflict, two successive years of severe drought, 1965 to 1966 and 1966 to 1967, devaluation of the currency in 1966, general rise in prices and resources available for planned purpose, delayed the finalization of the fourth five-year plan. Instead, three annual plans were formulated in the framework of the draft outline of the fourth plan. The main aim of this plan was to restore normalcy in the economy. The emphasis of these plans was to adopt irrigation projects along with the use of high-yielding variety crops in the agricultural sector. In the industrial sector, the stress was on the utilization of existing capacity and on consumer goods industry. Then fourth five-year plan, 1969 to 1974. The fourth plan aimed at raising the standard of living of the people through programs that would promote social justice and equality at the same time. The concentration of the plan was the welfare of the weaker sections of the society, especially through employment and education. The rate of growth in national income was 3.3% annum and the per capita income was 1.2% per annum. The performance in industry as well as agriculture was not satisfactory. So then the fifth five-year plan, the following objectives were stated under the fifth five-year plan, that is 1974 to 1979. Removal of poverty, achievement of economic sector. To achieve these objectives, the procedure thought was to get a 5.5% overall rate of growth, expansion of productive employment, extended programs of social welfare, emphasis on agriculture and basic industry with special attention to production for mass consumption, export promotion and substitution of imports. The fifth plan was to be completed in March 1979, was completed earlier by March 1970. This was the golden period for rural development as the largest funds were diversified for rural development. The rate of growth achieved was 5.2%. Then sixth five-year plan. This plan accelerated the work for the removal of poverty, generation of gainful employment, and technological and economic self-reliance. The plan target of growth rate 5.2% and achieved it. It was successful in achieving the required industrial development. It also achieved aims of social justice. The plan undertook the development of underdeveloped areas of the country. That is the main thing we find here. It also concentrated on the refinement of technology. It was the first perspective plan of the country slated for a long term of 50 years. It also saw a rapid growth in the service sector. About 94% of cost of investment was made from the domestic resources, projecting the self-reliance of the country. Then seventh plan, the sixth five-year plan provided the background for the next plan. The seventh plan was 1985 to 1990. The guiding principles of the plan continued to be growth, equity, and social justice, self-reliance, improved efficiency and productivity. The policies to accelerate growth in food grains production, increase employment opportunities, and raise productivity were pursued in this plan. The rate of growth of 5.6% was kept for this plan. The strategy in the seventh plan to generate predictive employment was to increase cropping intensities and extension of agriculture through use of new technologies. Emphasis was also given on various rural schemes for development. Then, for knowledge point of view, I have added this one because up to seventh plan only we have syllabus, but for getting more knowledge, we have to read this one also. Generating the adequate employment to achieve near full employment level by the turn of the country. Containing population growth through active scheme of incentivities. Eradication of illiteracy in the age of group of 15 to 35 years. Provision for health and availability of safe drinking water, especially in village. Self-sufficiency in food and generation of agriculture surplus. Strengthening the infrastructure in order to support growth process on a sustained basis. The strategy for achieving the above mentioned goals was to be a mixture of new investments and correction of imbalances in different sectors and increasing investment efficiency. This plan also aimed at 5.6% growth per annum. Much of the investments were to be made by capital inflow from abroad in the form of loans. Here we have to say that before completing this one, the conclusion is that five-year planned economic growth was adopted by India from the very beginning, and a planning commission was constituted under the chairmanship of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. The first five-year plan was implemented between 1951 to 56, which aimed at 12% of growth in national income and emphasized the growth of agriculture, irrigation, electricity. The first five-year plan, first five-year plan was executed successfully, and national income increased by 17.5%. The second five-year plan was executed between 1562 to 1961. It aimed at growth of 25% national income and emphasized heavy industries. So the aim of the second five-year plan could not be achieved perfectly. But besides other developments, the steel plant of Durgapur with the help of Britain, the Bhilai steel plant with the help of Russia, Turkey steel plant with the help of West Germany were established during this period, which provided the necessary base for the growth of heavy industries. The third five-year plan was executed between 1961-66. This plan also failed to achieve its target but helped in the economic growth of the country in several ways. After the third five-year plan, planning was done on yearly basis during 1966-69 after a fourth five-year plan was executed. But even by that time, India had achieved self-sufficiency in food, developed in its cottage and small-scale industries. Heavy industries too had grown up, irrigation had improved, and in many other fields, India had made a good beginning. Thus, within 20 years of independence, India was on a safe road of economic progress. However, there remained one great weakness in this development. The state failed to provide measures for their fair distribution of wealth, which resulted in increased gap between the rich and the poor. So, from the first fire plan to up to the seventh fire plan, we have always know that the how improvement of the agriculture, provide employment to the people, establish heavy industries and self-sufficiency, growth of agriculture, as well as provide the facilities to the people, produce the more things in India, and if more produce, then export things to other countries. So these all fire plans made India day by day economically strong and provided the employment to the people. So in the evaluation, the three successive fire plans were implemented for the economic development of India. Thereafter, 3 years of yearly planning, the fourth five-year plan was executed. It helped in increasing the national income, agricultural production, growth of cottage and small-scale industries, as well as heavy industries like steel plants and Durgapur, Villa and Turkey, what I explained. So these are the books I have referred for presentation. You can also refer India After Independence or Modern Indian History books or Wilson's History of British India. Even you can refer the V.D. Mahajan book, History of India Part 2. Then V.P. Kulkarni book, British Women in India and After. Then Bipin Chandra, India Struggle for Independence. So these are the books you can uh, refer for more information about the fire plan. Even Bipin Chandra book India After Independence, that give you detailed information about this fire plan. So thank you very much for listening my lecture.